Yeah.
Because, you're the Pope. You say, listen, we welcome everybody. We want everybody at our party.
It was a typical morning on The View. The studio buzzed with energy, the audience settled into their seats, and the panelists were ready to tackle the day's headlines. Yet something was about to happen that no one could have predicted. A moment that would turn an ordinary broadcast into a national conversation. A statement that would reverberate far beyond the studio walls. That day, one co-host spoke with a conviction and clarity that caught everyone off guard. A moment of honesty that challenged not just opinions, but the very boundaries of daytime television. The spark that ignited debate. The discussion began with a breaking political announcement, one that many in the public found frustrating and opaque. Questions hung in the air about accountability, transparency, and public trust. As the conversation unfolded, the co-host leaned into the camera and delivered a statement that was direct, unflinching, and impossible to ignore. Her words didn't just start a debate, they sparked a national conversation, one that was about more than politics. It was about speaking truth in the face of power, about asking questions that few dared to voice. The room fell silent, the audience caught in the moment, the energy in the studio shifting palpably. The immediate aftermath. Once the cameras cut to commercial, the atmosphere backstage was electric. Producers rushed to assess the impact of the remarks, voices rose in urgency, and executives gathered to navigate the unfolding situation. The ripple effect was instantaneous. Social media lit up with hashtags trending, debates flared across networks, and viewers everywhere weighed in with their reactions. Praise and criticism collided, dividing fans, commentators, and even fellow journalists. For the first time in a long while, daytime television felt like a stage for something far larger than entertainment. It had become a mirror, reflecting public frustration and curiosity. Boldness meets controversy. The co-host's remarks were not scripted. They were genuine, grounded in personal conviction and a commitment to honesty. That authenticity was both her greatest strength and the source of tension. Behind the scenes, staffers debated whether she had gone too far or whether she had said exactly what needed to be said. The network faced pressure from all sides, advertisers, viewers, and political commentators, yet the public discourse it sparked could not be contained. The balance between bold expression and measured caution became the focal point of internal discussions, a reminder of the tightrope that hosts of live television must navigate daily. Division behind the cameras. Inside the studio, the co-host colleagues reacted in varying ways. Some were supportive, nodding in quiet agreement, while others seemed taken aback, unsure how to respond on air. Private conversations reflected the complexity of the moment. Relationships were tested, loyalties weighed, and the usual rhythm of the show felt suddenly fragile. Producers scrambled to ensure that the next segment stayed on message, yet the authenticity of the unscripted moment could not be erased. For a brief time, the tension was tangible enough to affect every movement, every glance, every interaction. Social media explosion. As the broadcast ended, social media erupted. Viewers shared clips, comments, and interpretations in real time. One side celebrated her courage, highlighting the importance of transparency and asking difficult questions. Another side critiqued the perceived boldness, questioning whether daytime television was the right place for such direct political commentary. Influencers, bloggers, and commentators amplified the discussion, turning a single moment into a nationwide debate. The hashtags alone drew millions of interactions, demonstrating the power of media to transform a spontaneous statement into a cultural phenomenon. Backstage tension. The network's executives quickly convened, weighing responses to both the public and corporate partners. Internal memos circulated, reminding staffers of the delicate balance between free expression and corporate responsibility. Some staff members felt the moment represented a breach of protocol, while others saw it as a triumph of journalistic courage. Behind closed doors, meetings stretched late into the night as producers tried to anticipate every consequence. Even routine operations were affected, as the ripple from one statement spread into every corner of the production. Standing firm. Despite mounting pressure, the co-host did not retreat. In the following broadcast, she addressed the camera directly, speaking with clarity and calm. Her message emphasized the importance of questioning authority and maintaining integrity in public discourse. The audience responded with energy, applause, and visible support. This was not about defiance for its own sake. It was about setting a tone for accountability and encouraging viewers to think critically. In that moment, she transformed from a host into a symbol for candid conversation, a reminder that daytime television can still hold space for genuine debate. The network's dilemma. ABC now faced a complex challenge, balancing public support for their host with the concerns of advertisers, political commentators, and internal leadership. Leaks and reports began circulating, suggesting that internal lists were being compiled to assess risk among outspoken staff. These documents, whether fully accurate or not, created a narrative of tension between free speech and corporate caution. Every decision was scrutinized, every response analyzed. The network found itself navigating an unprecedented scenario where a single voice had reshaped the conversation, challenging the traditional power dynamics of media. Panel dynamics shift. The co-host colleagues adjusted their approach, some offering public support while others were cautious in their remarks. Private conversations hinted at disagreements, but on air, professionalism prevailed. The balance of perspectives created a nuanced dynamic that reflected both solidarity and dissent. Audience members, analysts, and media observers noted the shift, recognizing that the chemistry of live television could no longer be taken for granted. Each broadcast carried the weight of expectation, and the co-host's influence became a defining factor in how discussions unfolded. Public reactions across the country, viewers engaged with the controversy on multiple platforms. Celebrities, journalists, and everyday audiences weighed in, creating a collective conversation that extended beyond the studio. Supporters highlighted the bravery of addressing difficult topics openly, emphasizing the need for transparency. Critics questioned whether daytime television was the right form for such discussions, raising concerns about tone, timing, and audience suitability. Yet the dialogue continued, a testament to the co-host's ability to spark reflection, debate, and awareness. A turning point. The situation escalated further when independent journalists and media watchdogs began investigating broader patterns of influence and accountability. Reports surfaced linking various stakeholders to complex networks of power and decision-making. While the specifics were sensitive and often unverified, the broader narrative emphasized the importance of asking questions and challenging assumptions. The co-host's statements became a catalyst for renewed interest in transparency, demonstrating that a single moment of courage can ripple outward into broader societal conversations. Courage in context. Throughout this period, the co-host maintained a consistent voice. She spoke not to provoke, but to illuminate, emphasizing the value of inquiry and the responsibility of media to hold institutions accountable. Her approach balanced conviction with respect, creating a model for public discourse that acknowledged complexity without sacrificing clarity. Interviews, public appearances, and social media posts reinforced her commitment to speaking thoughtfully yet decisively, emphasizing that meaningful discussion requires both honesty and courage. The role of daytime television. This moment underscored a shift in the role of daytime television. Once considered primarily entertainment, talk shows became a space where serious topics could be addressed with authenticity and immediacy. Viewers were reminded that hosts could use their platforms responsibly to encourage civic engagement, critical thinking, and accountability. The co-host's actions highlighted how influential media personalities can bridge the gap between information and public consciousness, demonstrating the power of dialogue when handled with care. Behind the headlines. Internally, the network worked to ensure that operational stability was maintained. Meetings, briefings, and strategic discussions focused on messaging, legal considerations, and public perception. Staffers navigated competing priorities, balancing respect for the host's autonomy with organizational responsibility. Amid the tension, the team discovered the importance of collaboration, communication, and thoughtful decision-making in preserving both the integrity of the show and the trust of its audience. Resilience in action. The co-host's consistency and calm demeanor became a central theme in the unfolding story. While external pressures mounted, she approached each broadcast with intentionality, ensuring that her words reflected careful thought rather than reactionary impulse. This resilience resonated with viewers, reinforcing the idea that authenticity coupled with composure can have a powerful impact. The narrative became less about controversy itself and more about the capacity to navigate challenges with grace and insight. A new standard of audience engagement evolved alongside the controversy. Social media, traditional news outlets, and independent commentators all interacted with the unfolding story. Conversations about accountability, transparency, and media responsibility proliferated, creating a multi-dimensional dialogue that extended far beyond the studio. The co-host role became emblematic of a larger conversation about how public figures can encourage inquiry, critical thinking, and informed debate. Leadership and adaptation. For the network, this period required strategic adaptation. Executives reviewed internal policies, communication channels, and audience feedback, balancing operational needs with the importance of creative freedom. The situation highlighted the necessity of leadership that could accommodate bold voices while maintaining stability. The co-host approach became a case study in effective risk-taking, demonstrating that integrity and foresight can coexist even under pressure. The human element. At the heart of the story was the human element, the courage to speak, the responsibility to act, and the commitment to truth. The co-host's willingness to engage honestly with difficult topics resonated precisely because it reflected lived experience and personal conviction. Her actions reminded viewers that influence is most meaningful when grounded in integrity, empathy, and courage. This human touch transformed what could have been a fleeting controversy into a lasting example of principled engagement. Momentum builds. As the story continued, momentum grew in multiple directions. Viewers rallied, media analysts debated, and public discourse expanded. The co-host's words became reference points in broader discussions about accountability, power, and transparency. The ripple effect demonstrated how a single act of courage can transcend its immediate context, sparking dialogue, reflection, and ultimately change. Standing firm amid pressure. Even as corporate, social, and political pressures converged, the co-host remained steadfast. Her commitment to addressing difficult topics and asking important questions became the defining feature of her tenure. Viewers recognized that her authority was not based on fearlessness alone, but on a thoughtful, principled approach that respected both audience and platform. In standing firm, she exemplified how integrity and resilience can shape public discourse. Public support strengthened support from fans, activists, and public figures reinforced the co-host's position. Calls for continued freedom of expression, responsible media coverage, and accountability gained traction across social platforms. Supportive commentary emphasized the importance of protecting voices willing to challenge assumptions and foster critical thought. The narrative evolved from controversy to a conversation about principles, transparency, and ethical engagement. Resolution and recognition. Eventually, the network publicly affirmed its commitment to open dialogue and creative freedom, signaling support for the co-host. While internal discussions and debates continued, the public resolution reflected the impact of sustained courage and consistent, principled action. The moment became a reference point for future discourse, demonstrating that authenticity and thoughtful engagement can influence organizational decisions and shape public conversation. Legacy of the moment. This episode left a lasting legacy for daytime television, public discourse, and media engagement. It illustrated that hosts could navigate complex, sensitive topics with integrity, that audiences appreciated honesty even when it challenged their expectations, and that the human voice speaking from conviction remains one of the most powerful tools in shaping understanding and dialogue. A lasting example. Ultimately, the co-host actions became more than a single event. They represented a standard for principled engagement, a demonstration of resilience under scrutiny, and a reminder that courage in communication is often about persistence, clarity, and humanity. The story illustrated that influence is earned not through spectacle, but through authenticity, thoughtfulness, and the willingness to stand firm in one's values. The power of truth. This moment reminded viewers and media professionals alike that truth is not always convenient, but it is always essential. The co-host's choice to speak directly, thoughtfully, and unapologetically set an example for how public figures can use their platforms responsibly. Her action sparked reflection, dialogue, and engagement far beyond the studio, showing that one voice, grounded in conviction, can shape national conversation and inspire accountability. Closing reflections. In the end, the episode and its aftermath became a lesson in courage, resilience, and responsibility. The co-host's dedication to honesty, the network's navigation of complex pressures, and the audience's engagement created a rare moment of collective awareness. It was a reminder that media, while powerful, is most effective when rooted in principles, and that those willing to ask the questions that matter most can transform the ordinary into something extraordinary.